Today's topic is called New Business Development, and really it's about indeed that topic, but that's a specific use of something called the import wizard. So what we're going to be talking about here, if I click File Database Tools, and in the Tools menu it says Import Wizard, and click. So here's a wizard function. Wizard function is like a 5 or 6 steps each one. Every time you click next down at the bottom of the screen, it advances you to the next item and so on, and you kind of work your way through a number of screens, and you get to a conclusion. There's on-screen help every step of the way. So here's the question, and I'm going to pop this spreadsheet on my screen, and this particular spreadsheet happens to be a sample from Hoover's, which is done at Bradstreet. The idea being, in terms of new business, you may want to purchase a directory that is targeted to a very specific either geographic area or a specific industry or a very small subsegment of an industry. But the idea is these days when you purchase a directory, you get it in the form of a spreadsheet. And what you want to do is take that spreadsheet and use it to create records in ResuMate. So that's the idea. You want to be able to take a spreadsheet and then look how long this thing is. It goes on and on. There's 60-some columns in here, so there's tons of data in this. Scroll here, tons of data in this spreadsheet, and we want to take all of this data and move it into ResuMate, create ResuMate records based on this data. Now I want to pause briefly on column Z here. Column Z says line of business, and this is a wide column. It has a lot of stuff in it, and this stuff is good searching stuff, right? So measuring, controlling devices, auto parts supplies, navigation equipment. We want to take content like this and use it to be able to do searches in ResuMate. So a series of columns, and there are 60-some columns in this spreadsheet, starting with a name, first name, middle initial, last name, suffix, title, and so on. We want to take all of this data and use it to create records in ResuMate. Now, a directory product like this indeed is going to be I'll say, clean spreadsheet. I mean, it's a purchased product and it has a lot of discipline behind it. But another spreadsheet that people use, that I see frequently, that people want to import into ResuMate, may be a spreadsheet that you created yourself and have used over a period of years. And it's a good spreadsheet. It has lots of stuff in it. But it may or may not be ready. This one is ready to import. This is a good-looking spreadsheet. By good-looking or clean, what I mean is that a column, here's the title column, well, this column has nothing but titles. As I scroll down through this column, well, they're all titles. And if I scroll down through this last name column, they're all names. And if I scroll through company names, they're all company names and headquarters addresses. Sometimes when you make a spreadsheet yourself, they're not quite so disciplined as this one is. And I only want to say, before you import a spreadsheet into ResuMate, and indeed you can, it's a very simple process. And if you've built up a spreadsheet that has names and emails and phone numbers and titles and stuff, well, just make sure that a column contains consistent data. You'll see why in just a minute. But as long as a spreadsheet contains consistent data in all columns, it'll easily come into ResuMate. Now, let's jump back to ResuMate. In fact, no, stay in the spreadsheet for a minute, because what I want to show you is the following. In this spreadsheet format, every row, a spreadsheet, think of columns and rows, right? So the columns are all these. There's a row 1 is a series of callouts. First name, it tells you what's going to come below. So row 1's kind of important. It has the labels for the columns. But now in this particular spreadsheet, every row is a human being. It's Evelyn and Brian and Leah and Tim and Robert. These are individual people. And over here in column I, are company names. So we've got people and we've got companies, but a row is not a company. A row is a person. You can get a spreadsheet. You may have built one yourself where every row is a company. That's okay. But this format where every row is a person is going to give us a faster, better result. So, and when you buy a spreadsheet, almost always, buy a directory segment, almost always, and you can specify this when you purchase it, but almost always a row will not be a company, a row will be a human being, and that's kind of what we want. So now I've got to take a brief detour and see. I've got a lot of these companies already in here. Let me see if I put them into a group. I may or may not have. It's going to kind of, yes, I'm going to take this high value group. I put this in yesterday, I think, or some other time. I'm going to come down here, open up this window. So I'm using my groups tab. I'll come back and do this, but I got to do some housekeeping here, which I forgot about until I started the seminar. With my 91, see, I'm on record 1 of 91 here. I got 91 records. I'm going to do File Database Tools and block delete. I want to get rid of all these companies because I'm going to import them again. So there is a block delete function in ResuMate that lets me get rid of all of these companies in a single batch. And I'm going to go back there to high value, and now I still have 101 people that I brought in, and I want to do the same thing with my 101 people. I want to do File Database Tools, block delete, and get rid of them. And then I'm going to be able to import without everything being duplicates. This is not a bad thing to show you, by the way, in the sense that now if I go back to groups, high value has got nothing in it. Well, we're going to repopulate that. What I just showed you inadvertently, but it's still, let's make use of it. When you import, if you make a mistake, and I'll show you how, it's easy to make mistakes, and everybody, I do, so you can always start over again. You can delete and start from scratch. I just got rid of 101 people and 91 companies because it did it yesterday. But let's say that you did the mapping incorrectly. Let's look at what mapping means and why you might want to do it over again. So I'm going to go now to File, Database Tools, and to the Import Wizard. So here we are on the first screen of the import, which says Select File to Import. And indeed, I'm pointing to that Hoover sample file of 100 records. I'm selecting that file. I'm going to say Next. This screen is a bit redundant because the program correctly detects this is a tab delimited file. I could say it's a comma file if it detected that, possibly in other format, but it's almost always going to be either comma or tab. And then the first line of the file contains field names checkbox. Remember we looked at that database and that spreadsheet rather in row 1 said first name, middle initial, last name, and so on. So that's all that means. But that's if your spreadsheet, whether it's one that you made or one that you purchased, if in fact row 1 has field names, check this box because on the very next screen you'll see its utility. Not quite the screen after this. This screen says into which window. You got to choose. Are these going to be candidates? Are these going to be clients? Are these going to be job orders? Or are they going to be clients? Checkbox. Also import linked contact window records. Remember in this spreadsheet, here's Tim and Robert and Sam and so on. Well, we want these people to be contacts for these companies. We want to make a company screen, but have these people be contact people at that company. So that's what that's about. So let's go back to ResuMate. And we're going to say make client records, but also import linked contact records. Next. Now, here's the screen in which you could make a mistake that would cause you to want to redo the whole thing, delete everything and start over again. And it's simple, as you just saw, it's simple to do. Just File Database Tools, block delete, it'll delete the records in the currently active window. But now, Here, because I have that first row has first name, middle initial, last name, suffix, title, salary, bonus, company. This is handy. The program looks at that row 1 and says, oh, here's all my columns. And then there's a 2-column deal, incoming information, and then destination in Resumate. So what I want to do is map everything in these rows into a destination in Resumate. And here are the 2 controls. It says, where should it, the selected information, selected means it has the highlight bar. Whatever has the highlight bar is the selected information. So where should the selected information be copied? Well, there's a destination in the client window. Age is kind of odd. I can't even believe that's in there, but it is. Hoover's must not be illegal to sell that. I kind of think that might have a implication for EEO purposes. But in any event, let's take salary as a better example. Well, salary data, destination in the clients don't have salaries, so do not copy. But now, destination in the contact window, well, my guess is click. So your choices are field, phone, email, memo, or do not copy. If I choose field, I think I have a field in my records called compensation. So why wouldn't I take that salary data that's been provided to me, I paid for it. It's probably not much in there. In fact, I see the salary. This is a neat little thing. It says sample data. This shows that everything in the opening several rows is all empty. If I go to first name, for example, well, here's the sample data. Row 1 contains, column 1 contains Jeffrey, and middle initial is A, and so on, and last name, or these are last names, Abbott, and Abbe, and Abercrombie. So not only do I have the actual label itself, but I've got a sample set of data. So when I'm looking at company name, well, here's a bunch of company names. Notice that I can use these 2 controls. I can take the same piece of data, company name, and I can make it be the client, the actual name of the record itself in the client window, and I can designate it to be the employer field in the contact record window. So the idea is I can map things, and that's what I have to do with these 2 controls. So even though that spreadsheet has 60-some columns, and Resumate only has, in the people record, it has 6 dates and 6 text fields, but it also has, let's go down to the line of business thing, for example. If I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Line of business. Here's that column that had, well, you can see the sample data, manufacturing, aircraft, and so forth. I can't see much, but I can see enough that I know that that's what's in that column. And in this case, because that column is wide, has lots of stuff, could have, several hundred characters worth, well, I can't squeeze that into a field in Resumate, so field would not be a good choice, but memo is a good choice because memos are open-ended. They can contain anything. So if you think about it, if we have that good searchable data, well, why not put it into a memo? And I could actually auto-classify the memo when I'm done here. I'll show you how in a minute. I could match that stuff up against my valid table and extract things out based on matches and synonyms. So there's a lot going on in this import. What I'm doing is creating records, and I can make full records. I mean, I'm going to make records that have the valid table filled in and have this stuff in the memo, which is searchable as well. So the idea is that everything you see here has to be accounted for using these 2 columns over here. So that's the whole idea. And then you just work your way through the whole thing. I think I got this. It remembers your mapping, by the way. So if you do a format and come back and do it again, it's going to automatically remember what you did. And so I think this is all set up sort of. It's good enough for my purposes. Now, this is what you want to be totally meticulous about. You got to make sure that everything is accounted for. Let's go to last name, for example. Last name in the client window, I don't want last name, doesn't belong in the client window. But I want to put last name in the contact window as the last name field, right? So I have all the fields. This is going to show you all of the fields that make up that record. So in any event, all you got to do is map using these two controls to say where in Resume, in the client screen and in the contact screen, where does all this stuff go? And when you've mapped it all and you're pretty good with it, you say, well, click next. How should duplicate records be handled, it says, because that's kind of an important thing. You don't want to allow duplicates into the database, so what do? Well, and so you have a control. You have a control for the client window and an independent control for the contact window. So what I'm choosing in my little show and tell here is overwrite the existing record with the new one. The assumption in general with that choice would be that the data coming in from my spreadsheet is better, newer, more complete. Something about it is better, so that if I have an existing record, I want to take the spreadsheet record and overwrite that which is already there. Now, if you really want to think a little bit deeper, this solves another problem. In that spreadsheet, well, let's go here. In that spreadsheet, indeed, it's possible that the same company could appear more than once in this list. And if it did, what I want is a situation. Let me just see if I can find. Yeah, let's see if we can do this. If I have, well, A to Z sort that. So do we have anything that's actually, Helicopter Support Inc. occurs twice. And it's the same query. No, it isn't. It's a different address, 116 query and 124 query. So that may not be the same. It isn't the same. But there are some of these that are the same, where the company in the address, everything is the exact same. The point is, let's just go back to Resume. So what I want to do, I'm using clients. I'm not using address one. So what the helicopter thing might have should have two people when I'm done with at least two. So in other words, if a company occurs more than once in the spreadsheet, I will still just create one company record. So it's not just checking against my existing records in my database, but it's checking against the incoming records. So if a company is twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, whatever, in the spreadsheet, we're going to make one company record, but multiple linked contact people. And I'm choosing down for the contact people. I'm letting them all in. If it exists in my database, I don't care. Bring these new people in. But you could choose these choices. There's 3 choices. Keep what's there and drop the new one on the floor. Drop the one that's there on the floor and put the brand new one in, or let them both in. So we're saying let them both in. I'm going to click next. We're almost done. Now, specify other import settings. I can auto-classify. Now I don't have a table that matches this stuff, so I'm not going to select that. Mark contact records as contact only. I'm leaving that little check mark there. What that would say, if you recall, Resume has one record format for people records. But people, in a sense, come in 2 broad categories: contact people, which is largely to say hiring managers, and then candidates. Well, I'm saying that the people coming in from this Hoover spreadsheet are not candidates. They're contact people. They're hiring authorities. They're people I'm going to call, especially given my seminar name, New Business Development. I'm saying these are people that I want to call looking for jobs, not call looking for them as potential candidates. Actually, it works both ways, but it's sensible to check. I am checking this. And then here's assign imported records to groups. This is what I wanted to do. I want to take all these records coming in from the spreadsheet. I'm going to say select. I'm going to try to, this should work, and put it back in the same group I deleted them from. So now I'm putting all these people in the high value group. The reason you put them in a group is not just so that you could, recover in case you did a mismapping. And you could, I hope anyway, you could see now that if you map something incorrectly, let's say that company name you didn't map into as the employer in the person record, well, you might want to go back and fix that. It's not fatal, but it would be better if you had mapped it correctly. So one reason to put incoming records into a group is so that you can start over again. If you made a lot of mistakes, read, oh my gosh, this was careless. I didn't do the address at all. I used the wrong. There's a mailing address as well as a physical address, which is not a mailing address. A directory product has a lot of content, and you could easily kind of get some stuff messed up. Well, put them in a group. You can just open up the group, lock, delete, and start over again. So that's a good thing. But another reason to put them in a group would be so that you could at any time go back and look at what you brought in from that spreadsheet. Because once this import function is over, these records are just blended in, right? They're just part of the mix. And you want to be able, I think, to go back, not just to kind of say, oh, I've got to start over, but no, just to say, I want to see who these people were. Who are these people? Who are these companies that I brought in? So putting them in a group has that benefit. Click Next. Now it's click Begin to start the import process. Begin. Ready to import 100 records. Okay. As you can see, it goes pretty quick. And we processed 100 records, and we had 9 dupes on the client side, and we brought in 100 records on the contact side. Okay, and close. And now if I go back to my database, in fact, let's go back to my Groups tab, because here's my High Value tab, and I could just double-click this. Whenever a group name has records in more than one type, here's the candidates, here's the clients. So you pick which one you want. I'm going to say, give me the clients. So here's the 91 clients who came in from that group. Let's just click the list icon, and let's go to helicopter down here. Is in twice, but I'm going to guess they're truly different companies. And I only have one record for this guy. It will correctly give you, if there's more than one contact at a company. If I scroll through here, I'd probably find somebody with multiple contacts. So there's a few. There's not many, but there are some that have more than one contact person. Because we brought in 100 records, got 91 companies, but 100 people came in. So some of those companies indeed have more than one person associated with them. So the idea is, this is utterly simple to do. You don't need to set aside a half a day to do an import. You need to set aside 15, 20 minutes because you want to map it correctly. But you can certainly bring records into the database from a spreadsheet. And here we have, whatever this is, Marsh Aviation. Now, here, I'll show you something. Here's that Hoover's Data tab. Click. Well, here's all that stuff. Here's the line of business. Here's all that. Not too much, a little bit. It says tool cutting, aircraft repair services. Oh, it's a lot of stuff there. So this whole top 3 lines came in from that column I, line of business, or column Z rather. But here's the DUNS number, the company type, single location, year end is December. I mean, I got a lot of stuff here that is now searchable. So I was able to take all 60 columns out of that spreadsheet and find a home. Now I see that looks like I did map something into the revenue. I should have mapped number of employees because the head count was in those records too. I think it might be mapped over here. Yeah, employees at this location, 105. So notice it took the column title. So when you map things into the memo, it doesn't just come in as a bunch of data. The column title is followed by the column content. So employees at this location, 105. I could just as easily have put that 105. I could have mapped it in, since I have a field called number of employees, I could have mapped it over here. The point is, I mapped it all. This would not ever cause me to redo it. But it's just an alternative as to where to locate the data. But the point is, you can make, a lot of records in a heck of a hurry. We talk about this way back in the first week of the seminars each month when we talk about creating your file with mouse clicks only. And the spreadsheets importing a spreadsheet is a way to create, in this case, 91 companies, 100 people, but that could easily be, 900 companies or 9,000 companies. There is an upper limit. I think it's in the tens of thousands. If your spreadsheet is huge, I don't think it's going to import. You have to import it in 2 blocks, but it's tens of thousands. In real life, it's not an issue. Once in a blue moon, I see people with a spreadsheet that's huge, and you do have to break it into two pieces in order to bring it into the database, but that's a rare thing. So the point is I was able to bring stuff in. Now, so the bulk of today's topic is exactly that. How do you bring a spreadsheet in? Well, it's pretty simple. File database tools, import wizard. And once you get to the wizard screen, it is indeed a wizard screen. Pick the file. Next, it's going to probably detect this correctly by its own. Next, where do you want to put it? We want to put it here and here. Next, here's the mapping screen. Here you got to be careful. This is where everything is happening. This is where you say this goes here. In fact, if we went down to a head count, which may or may not be easy to find, you could see that I mapped it into the memo. That's not worth finding. In any event, this is where you map stuff. When you're done, next, deal with duplicates. Next, deal with the final housekeeping stuff, and you're done. So it's not at all difficult to bring a spreadsheet in. What I want to show you in the time remaining is I want to go to groups and want to go to NBD, see if I got something here. Yes, let's briefly talk about this because ResuMate is useful for new business development, not only because you can bring in spreadsheets. I want to have spreadsheet importing included in the seminar series because I think bringing records in from spreadsheets is a common function, very important, and knowing how to do it is important. So yeah, and we need the time to focus on that. It takes up most of the seminar. But I wanted to show you some ideas that I've put in my groups tab that deal with specifically new business development. So I made a fake recruiter called NBD here, and went underneath this recruiter, I put these groups. These are not bad ideas. Companies should fit mine. I got nothing in any of these, but the idea is if you have groups like this, and you would have your own variation on this, you wouldn't do exactly what I have here, but I think the idea of companies who fit my profile makes a lot of sense because the longer you do this, the more you get aware of some kind of refined details, and for a whole bunch of reasons, you may find whether it's geography, which is always a possibility, or a very specific subset. It may be do manufacturing, but you do specifically, tubes or some specific product, and you really understand chemical engineering is a refined. You may find a highly refined company that really fits your sweet spots. Well, put them into a group, because in terms of if you have companies who really fit exactly what you do, that's a great place to start marketing, and you could pop that set of companies on your screen. This is a judgment call. There's nothing data. There's nothing specifically in the data that would allow you to put people into this group. This is your judgment about, even in that little set we just looked at, that line of business column had very specific things in it. They were all sort of, generally speaking, I think aerospace, but there were sub groups within that. Sorry, a group of companies who fit your profile. This was my, I used the other one, but this is where I wanted to bring those Whois people into the, I put them in a different group under a different recruiter, but I think if you bring a spreadsheet in, you make a group and put that spreadsheet in the group so that you have both the companies and the linked people. Key decision makers, again, a judgment call. If you've been working for a while and you know that certain people at companies are the real people who can make things happen, put them in a group. Contact them when you're looking for new business. People that receive your newsletter. These ideas are kind of simple. Ask for referrals and testimonials. There's a bit of work involved. I've asked for referrals and testimonials many times, and I get wonderful response. It comes down to putting the work into thinking it through as an honest request, simple, easy for the person to reply, and so the point is you need to actually do some work, but thinking about, well, who can I ask for a referral? Well, my goodness, that pops up in all the time. If you place a candidate, well, that's a good referral source. Rather than deal with asking for the referral, put that person in a group. And the same thing with testimonials. If a client is pleased, and maybe the actual time of the hire maybe is not the right time to be asking for the test, but so put them in a group. The idea to me is that groups is a way to create subfolders of people who will, in companies, who will be useful to you in terms of business development. And it just, we talked about groups in the context of keeping your searches organized. Groups has a lot of purposes, and I think new business is a very nifty purpose in which to use groups. Goodness, I'm way over time. So I'm going to stop, and we'll jump back to the client screen and look for questions. Yes, if you had 9 duplicate companies, the contacts should still go into the companies that were already in the database, yes. Let me think about that, though. I think so. Yes, if they really matched, yes, if the company matched exactly. So in whatever match pattern you chose, if you said first name, pardon me, company name and city state, if there was a company with a city state with that same thing, yeah, then that contact person would go to that count. As long as the match is exactly perfect, it would put them in. No, the Hoover's data memo is not a template. It's just an open-ended, empty memo. The import wizard allows you to create a custom memo on the fly. You can also specify an existing memo, but I chose in the import wizard you can create a custom memo, but it does not have a template. It looks like it does because the labels for the fields all appear. Here, if we can. Here, but let me show you something quick here. So these all have callouts, but that's not because it was a template. That just grabbed the column title and then put the word next to it, location type, single location. The word, this is the content, this is the column title. But what I wanted to show you, I'm glad you brought that up. If I go to my linked contact person, Edward Allen, I may need to scroll a bit to find, here's my Hoover's data. Here's that data in the contact person. So I put that column Z into the contact person as well as into the company. Okay, we're over time. Thanks for attending. This is the last session of this month. We pick up again in April, so no sessions next week, but then the week following, we pick up again and start over again. So thanks for attending.